Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. So I'm Miss Woodward. I teach AP Human in Georgia. I don't know where you're from, but I'm in Georgia. This is my 5th or 6th year. I can't even remember right now, 5th or 6th year teaching AP Human. I teach it to 9th graders at my school, which is typically the age that most kids take it, but I know some places do it differently. So today we're talking about population pyramids. Have you learned about these in your class yet, or are y'all just getting to it? Kind of pick an emoji for what represents how you feel about population pyramids so far. I know that's putting you on the spot. Okay, cool. So y'all did migration before you do population? Interesting. All right. I've never heard of anybody teaching it that way, so I'm intrigued. Okay, so this is good. I actually like that better because then you don't have any prior knowledge and it lets me know if you actually are getting what I'm teaching. So let's get started then. First, have to do the plug. Follow Fiveable on all the types of social media. I've got my Fiveable t-shirt on tonight, repping the home team here. So follow them for all your AP needs. Lots of great resources out there for you. All right. Our main focus tonight is population pyramids. If you're familiar with the course outline or course description that College Board provides, we are in topic 2.3, and we're focusing on how you explain the ways geographers depict and analyze population composition and how we use that population composition. So basically, we're focusing on what are population pyramids, how do we read them, and what can they tell us? By the end, you will be a pro. I really like population pyramids. I know that's nerdy, but I feel like they are a little kind of mystery to be solved because they can really tell us a lot of information. So I think they're cool. Here we go. So what is a population pyramid? Fancy way of saying it, it's a way for geographers to depict and analyze population composition. Really all it is just a bar graph that shows us population composition. And since you haven't started population yet, you've only done migration, population composition is just the makeup of your population. So the main two statistics you get from that usually are gender and age. And that's what population pyramids tell us. But they tell us so much more, which is great. Questions so far? Probably not. Awesome. You're getting some one-on-one education here. Okay, so what is a population pyramid? This picture right here, this is a population pyramid. So you get that bar graph representation I was telling you about. It does have a kind of pyramid-esque shape in the sense that it is larger at the bottom than it is at the top. But that's not always going to be the case. My attempt at a meme here. So that was a population pyramid, but also so is this. And so is this. And so is this. So all three of these and the ones we just looked at, they all look different, and that's okay. They all still tell us the same information. I just wanted to show y'all different population pyramids because I want you to realize they're not always going to look identical. Depending on the producer or the resource where you're getting it from, it's going to look different, but there's some constants that you can always follow with it. Like your females will always be on the right and your males will always be on the left. That's like a given. No matter what color the pyramid is, no matter what shape it is, those are always going to be your constants. It's also always going to show you usually age. Most of the time it does it through age. Sometimes it shows like a year, a time period through the center or off to the side, but the majority, 99% of the time, it's going to be age. So now let's get into how to read them, okay? You'd be surprised what this tiny little bar graph can tell you. So First, we are going to, I don't know what math experience you have, but typically with graphs and math, they tell you to look at all your labels. That's exactly what you're going to do with a population pyramid. So the first thing I do is I check to make sure female and male, even though that's how it always should be. I always double check. I come down, I see age on this axis. Then we want to identify scale. And really the order that you do this in is up to you. But in terms of labels, do your labels first before you get into shape. When it comes to scale, this can mean a couple of different things. So the title of this pyramid, if you see, it's a world. So every country that contributed data for this particular resource, they're depicted on this population pyramid. Sometimes it's a country, sometimes it's a city. It just depends on the resource, and who produced it is what's going to dictate the scale. The second way that we kind of look at scale in this case of a population pyramid is if you look down at the bottom. So this says percent of population. The majority of the time, it either says percent of population or it says population in millions or population in thousands, depending on how large of a scale the pyramid depicts. With me so far? Okay, I hope you're not bored to tears. The next thing we're going to look at is the shape. So yes, they're called population pyramids, but they're not always going to be shaped like a pyramid. If you look at this one, we have a pretty consistent structure through the majority of this population pyramid. It's not really until we get into our upper ages that we start to see a real shift in the shape of the pyramid. So overall, the general shape of it, I would say pretty rectangular with a taper at the top. Sometimes you'll hear like a carrot shape or inverted pyramid or something like that. You can usually tell what they mean when they describe it for the most part if you see an exam question. The other thing is anomalies. So anomalies are kind of like your red flag, or not red flags, I don't want to say that because that has a negative connotation, but they're like your attention getters. They're things that really stick out in the pyramid. So is there anything in this pyramid that kind of sticks out to you at this point? Awesome. Yes, I would also call that an anomaly. Once we get up here, overall, our ages between male and female are pretty consistent, or pretty even. And then once we start getting up to the top, first we have this quick little dip in females right here compared to our males, but then we have this larger proportion on the right side. And that is right. That is because women are living longer than men. This is for a couple of reasons. I'm not being gender biased here. I'm just saying how it typically is. Typically, women just tend to take care of themselves better than men. We're more health conscious, and we tend to do the things, we're more proactive about our health, going to the doctor preventatively, watching what we eat, exercise, those types of things. I'm not saying all men don't do that. Don't get me wrong. But like, if I get a headache, I think it's a brain tumor, and my husband hasn't been to the doctor in like 10 years. So women and men are just different when it comes to how we care for ourselves, right? So we've got our labels, we've got our shape. Now we are going to practice a little bit. We're going to do a lot of practice, actually. I just have to give you a little background, and then it's going to be all work from here on out. So here's a new pyramid. It looks a little different from the one we saw before. Difference in colors, difference in the way it's set up a little bit. Our age is on the right side now. But overall, it's given us the same information. So let's practice breaking this down again. We look at our scale. We don't have a title for this pyramid yet. So we can't make any assumptions about that. But we do see that we have this scale reference, which is percentage of population. So we know when we go to read it that a little over 8% of the population is females age 0 to 4. That's how you would read the pyramid. I don't know if I said that before, but I'm sure you figured it out. So then gender, we've got our females on this side, we've got our males on this side. We've also got pretty consistent numbers. It seems pretty symmetrical and definitely a lot more of that pyramid shape than the first pyramid that we looked at. So then I kind of just tell my students to take inventory because the thing you want to do is identify trends. When we talk about the things, the characteristics that the pyramid has, we call those trends in AP Human. So when we look at our children is typically your ages 15 and under, despite what you classify yourself. That's how it is numerically. Usually it's your 15 and under because that's your non-working age. So they depend on working age people. And that is where the bulk of our pyramid is, the bulk of our population. Then you have your working age people. So we're going to check in with our people 15 to 64-ish, right about here. That's our second most populated section. And then our elders are going to be your 65 and up. Those people above 65 and those people below 15, they depend on the working age people. That's something called dependency ratio. I'm not sure if you have learned about that yet. But we see overall our trends are the majority of our people are in the youth age and the minority of our people are in the elderly age. So far, are you with me? Okay, you're being such a good sport, Jared. So we've taken inventory of this. This pyramid would be an example of a rapid growth population because the majority of our people are in this youth age, which means, can you see my cursor? Sorry, can you see my cursor when I hover over the pyramid picture? No? Okay. So if you just look at that like 15 and under age range, that's where the bulk of our people are, our population. That bulk is only going to increase as it moves up the pyramid. So this pyramid is going to get fatter as time goes on. Like if we looked at this pyramid 50 years from now, it would get fatter through the center because the majority of your population is going to start having kids once they reach the birthing age. Yeah, we'll talk more about that later. Do you have any questions so far about how we practice reading this pyramid? Not now. All right, awesome. So, I was telling you, you could see we're gonna get to what all you can tell about a pyramid, which is the fun part, I promise. Well, to me. But you can also do something called annotating pyramids. This is not something that's super common with AP Human in this detail, just because a lot of times kids who take AP Human haven't had world history yet. So your understanding of the rest of the world is kind of at a disadvantage, and that's not your fault. That's just the way schools sequence their courses. But like if you look at this particular pyramid of China, there's a couple of things that really stick out. Like right here, 1979 is where the one-child policy would have been implemented. So once that starts to implement, you reach something called demographic momentum. Just because China put that law into order doesn't mean the next day all of a sudden there's less people, right? You've got this history of really promoting large birth rates. So if your family has 6 kids, all 6 of your kids are probably going to have at least 1 child. So your population is actually going to grow before it shrinks, which is why if you find one-child policy on the right, kind of towards the right of the 20 mark, after that, you see a big bulge in the pyramid because of that demographic momentum. So someone obviously took a lot of time to annotate this pyramid, and you can do that with pyramids, but that's a skill y'all probably won't get to in the average AP Human class. Maybe, I don't know how your teacher teaches things, but typically no. But it's interesting to see. This kind of shows you we can learn a lot more from the pyramid. So we're going to practice a little based on just compositions that we've looked at so far. This pyramid, I know it's a little blurry, but I will, if you have questions about the ages, let me know and I will clarify them for you. But I think overall you could tell. What type of population do you think this pyramid most likely represents? A, B, or C? Oops. C, college town. Awesome. We have a big anomaly in this pyramid, right? We've got these two bars that jut out way further than anything else, and they jut out in the age 20 to 24 age range, which is typically your college age kids, right? In a college town, you do have to remember. So like when I do this activity with my students, they say, well, what about all the other people in the pyramid? Are they going to college too? Some of them, yeah, in your older ages, probably, because you do have people who are non-traditional college students. But college towns have other people in them. The town isn't just made up of people who go to the college, right? All of those businesses that thrive off of the university, they have to have workers, and that's who populates the town. So the professors, the restaurants, the bookstores, all of those people live within that town most likely. And so that's who we're seeing for the bulk of the pyramid, with the exception of that anomaly. Good job, Jared. Nice. Okay, here's another one for you. So we've got girls' college, military base, or state prison. Military base. See, you already know all this. Yes, absolutely. This is a military base. So a military base is going to be a community basically for the military family, or military families, excuse me. So you will have young children. They're not in the military. They live on the base because their parents are in the military. You'll still have females because females can be in the military. They don't make up the bulk of the military composition, but these are probably women in the military or wives of people in service on the military base. And then you see if it kind of cuts off at the, let me check, around the 50 age range, we really see a significant drop off. That's because that's when you start to reach retirement age. And living on a military base, you have security clearance. And when you are no longer doing that job, serving in service in the military anymore, you don't have that clearance to live on the base. So you're not going to have any people not working for the military base on the base. Great job, Jared. So we talked a couple of slides ago about pyramids at different scales. So we just looked at two city scales. And then before that, we looked at our world scale. And then before that, we didn't know what that one pyramid was. So this is a population pyramid of the United States on the left, like all 50 states included, so averaged out. But then on the right, you have different pyramids of US cities. So even though those are all part of the United States, they look significantly different from our averaged composition, right? So that can be kind of interesting for us to look at, and we'll practice a little more with that in a little bit. All right, we're moving right along. So we have a map of, or population pyramid right here of Germany from 1946. And we have a huge anomaly, I would say, or what would draw my attention, in your 20 to like 34 age range on the male side. So depending on what you know about world history, what do you think could have contributed to that and is being reflected in our pyramid? No pressure or anything since you're the only person in here. Okay, for the sake of time, I'm gonna go. So in this particular pyramid, we see that huge gap because this is around World War II. World War II is just ending, so Germany lost a significant amount of their males aged 20 to 34 because that is the largest population who makes up the military. So this is what I meant by saying that the pyramids can be really telling of history and things that have occurred in the country. So we're gonna do a little more practice. This pyramid we looked before are super pyramid shaped pyramids are rapid growth. This pyramid is more rectangular. What trends do you see throughout the pyramid? Where are most of our people? Where aren't they? And what do we think a more rectangularly shaped pyramid means? I think I might have lost my star pupil. Okay, so for trends, we see that we've got a little bit of a bulge in your age range of like 25 to, I don't know, 44-ish. And then it tapers off a little towards the top. Overall, this is pretty rectangular for the most part. This is something that we call a stationary pyramid. Stationary, if you think like stationary bike in the gym where you keep pedaling but you're not going anywhere, that's what's happening with a stationary pyramid. Population is pretty constant, consistent. Birth rate, for the most part, is canceling out death rate or vice versa. So here's where things get exciting. I know you thought it would never happen. We are going to start to make assumptions. So we talked about trends. We talked about how we can identify trends. Now we're going to take those trends and see how we can make assumptions about the place that we're looking at in the pyramid. So we take this pyramid on the left. We saw this one before. Our first trend is that we have a small elderly population. From that, we can make some assumptions. If we have a small elderly population, then we have low life expectancy. This can be for several reasons. It can be inadequate healthcare, it can be inadequate nutrition, a lack of availability of nutrition. A lot of different things play a factor, but typically it has to do with low standard of living. If your elderly people are not living a long time, if life expectancy is low, it's usually tied to low standard of living. So then we have our second trend. First, we identified our minimum amount of people, which was our elderly. Now we identify where the majority of our people are. That is our youth population. If we have a large youth population, we can assume that we have a high CBR. And this can come from, typically high CBR is because of a lack of family planning. And this is for a lot of different reasons also. It could be that culturally, that's just not what is valued in the country. It is the women's gender roles. Females are encouraged to have children. It could be that females don't have opportunity other than having kids, so they have to be a mom. I mean, that's their main role in society, in the societal structure. It could be that women don't have access to education, in terms of education that would teach them how to prevent pregnancy, or just education like going to school. You know, the more time you're doing something else, the less likely you are to have children. So that could be education of family planning or educational opportunities, period. So this is where it gets exciting. I told you, I promised it would. If we have a low life expectancy and we have a really high birth rate, what can we assume about this country? Nobody? Okay. I'll tell you, even though you probably already know. We can assume that if we have a low life expectancy and a high birth rate, that we're looking at an LDC, or a less developed country, or a developing country, or a periphery country, whatever you want to call it. That's what we can get to from all these different pieces of the puzzle. See, I told you it was fun, right? Yes. Right now you're probably thinking, am I an AP Human super genius? Yes. The answer is yes, you are. Let's try a little more practice. Even though I'm in here by myself, basically. Okay, so this is back to those pyramids of the United States. We've already done 2 of these. Jared did an awesome job of picking out Pyramid 2 and Pyramid 4 is what we've done. That was our Ann Arbor, Michigan is College Town. If you see in the right part of this pyramid graphic, there is the letters A through H, and it has city labels. I've also put the remaining ones we have not done to the right. So Buffalo County is an Indian reservation. Leavenworth, Kansas is a state penitentiary, or that particular town has a state penitentiary or a prison. Manhattan has a lot of wealthy working age people who don't have a lot of kids. Northampton, Massachusetts has a women's college. Punta Gorda, Florida has a retirement community, and Springfield, Illinois is like your typical small town USA American town. So if we had more people in here, I would say let's take some time to start to match these up. But I think what we're going to do is I'm just going to kind of sort through and show you how I would do it. Since we don't have a lot of people responding right now, I think, unless you want to do this, oh no. My 2 people who are in here, oh, wonderful. You're a teacher, oh, yeah. Thank you. Our other person in here, are you a teacher? Or are you even in here anymore? Okay, so for the sake of time, and my other teacher, please feel free to chime in on how you would do this with your kids. But what I would start to do is pick out the ones that have, oh, you're both teachers, so we're just a brain trust in here. Okay, so I would start to pick out your pyramids with the greatest anomalies. That's usually the easiest ones to start matching up first. So for me, I immediately look at number 5, where the majority of my population is elderly people, or in the second half of their life, I guess we should say. And so then I go back to my answer choices and I look at G, and I see that Punta Gorda, Florida is a retirement community. That matches up. Retirement community, the majority of the people are going to be in their golden years, and there's really no other pyramid besides 5 that meets that concentration of elderly people. So we've got 5 as G. The next pyramid I would probably look at is 7, just because it has that large jut out of your kind of 15 to 24 age range on the female side. So then I go back to my answer choices and I see that F, Northampton, has a girls' college. Well, that makes sense that if it's a girls' college, you're going to have a high concentration of females in that particular age range, and only females, right? If it's a female college. Because if you think back to when we looked at number 2, that's Ann Arbor, Michigan. They are a college town, and it's not just a female college, co-ed college. So we've got an even concentration, an anomaly that juts out with that pyramid. So 7 is going to be F. Then I would probably look at our number 6, I guess. We go back to what we just talked about with stationary pyramids. So with the stationary pyramid, you've got pretty consistent growth. That's kind of like your average typical looking pyramid. So that I would associate with your typical American town, since these are all US population pyramids. So I would pair that with H. That leaves us with 1 and 3 and 8. So for number 3, we have kind of like a Christmas tree shape, which means the majority of our people are in the working ages, over 15, under 65. And we see a really low birth rate or low youth population in this pyramid. So then I go back to my descriptions. I've got Buffalo County left. I have Leavenworth, which has the state penitentiary, and then I have Manhattan left, which has our wealthy working age people who are working. Cost of living is high. They're probably not having a lot of kids. So I would pair that with 3, which leaves us with 1 and 8. So 8, the first trend I noticed is that there's more males than females. Not ragging on our men, just typically they are caught committing crimes at higher rates, and they make up a larger percentage of the prison population. So that's the first thing I kind of connect for this pyramid. I also see it in the bulk of the pyramid for males in that 18 to 40 range. That's typically your largest percentage of people being convicted as well. So males 18 to 40. There's still females, because yes, there's females in jail or in prison, but this prison is in a city. So there's going to be a whole bunch of people in that city that aren't in prison. They could have jobs related to the prison, but that town functions outside of a prison. So it's normal to have other age ranges. Because I know when I do this with my students, they're always like, but there's no super old people or super young people in jail. That's true most of the time, but this is reflective of the whole city. So 8 is D, and that leaves 1 with B. Buffalo County, South Dakota, and Indian Reservation, typically those have lower standard of living, less access to resources, which would make sense that we would have less people at the top, less access to healthcare, and more people at the bottom with higher birth rates. My only people in here are teachers, but if anyone else has questions, let me know, or we'll go to the next slide. All right. So now we're going to take our superpower that we didn't realize that we had, where we are population pyramid super geniuses, mystery solvers, and we are going to take it like one step further. So not only can we read a pyramid at this point, not only can we identify trends in the pyramid, we can use those trends and the assumptions that we made about that country or city or location reflected in the pyramid, and we can start to predict future problems that that society could have. Not in a negative way, just this is how demographers use population pyramids so that they can help better provide for future problems, for resources, marketing purposes, all sorts of stuff you can use a pyramid for. So we had this pyramid a couple of slides ago. We ID'd our trends in that slide. We said that the majority of our population was youth aged, the minority of our population was elderly aged. So from that trend, we can start to make predictions about their societal problems. In this particular case, we have a really high birth rate, which means even if all the people at the bottom part of our pyramid had less kids, there's still a ton of people who will be reaching childbearing years. And so there's probably going to be a population boom before there can be a population decline. So you're going to have a lot of workers, which is good, but you will have a lot of youth age children depending on your working age people, because your youth can't work, they don't make money, they rely on people. We talked about dependency ratio at the beginning of this. They rely on working age people. So you're going to have a really high percentage of that. That can mean strain for resources, strain for childcare. Not always strain for childcare, but sometimes if you have an abundance of children. Anything else? Any other assumptions y'all can make? My other teachers want to chime in here at all? All right, then we'll move on to our next one. So practice our reading. Japan 2050. We've got our males, our females. This time, this is the first one we've looked at that doesn't have percentage of population as our bottom axis. This is actually population in millions. So this is a big change in the pyramid shape that we have looked at before. What are our trends here? We have a large elderly population. And as our pyramid gets down to your younger ages, it really starts to taper off, which means people are having fewer and fewer children. There's fewer people in the childbearing years, which means there's fewer people to have kids. So really this pyramid, if we looked at it in another 50 years, is going to taper off even more at the bottom. It would most likely, if not dealt with, continue to get skinnier and skinnier. So from our first trend, a lot of elderly people, we can assume that standard of living is very high, good access to medical care or adequate medical care. It could be adequate nutrition, just standard of living in general, like lack of manual labor, intense manual labor at least, vaccinations, all the typical things that would keep your elderly people living longer. Low birth rate, typically we associate that with a more developed country. Women have greater access to opportunities, to education. It could be that cost of living is so high that people are not having kids, or that they're having to work so much that they are putting off having kids. Lots of different factors, but typically the more developed a country is, the lower the birth rate is going to be. So for Japan, in this particular shape that we have in any country that has that inverted pyramid shape, you can start to predict problems for them. So our first trend was a lot of elderly people. Issues with that, who's going to take care of all of them, right? If our majority of our population is elderly and there's not a lot of new people being born, that means you have a lot of elderly people who need care. You're going to probably see a decline in your workforce because, again, our birth rate's going down. That generates less people over time. Decline in the workforce is what's really going to cause a lot of other problems as well. So when you think about workers, those are the people who are paying taxes. So any socialized incentives that are happening, those are probably going to suffer or be threatened by lack of funding. You also are going to, if there's any type of like state or national pension, retirement program, anything like